I'm Greg Johnston, CEO of Carl Data Solutions, an industrial Internet of Things company that provides big data solutions for monitoring critical infrastructure. Carl Data offers machine learning and predictive analytics features through our cloud-based applications to deliver key asset-saving operational insights from massive amounts of data. Carl Data trades on the CSE, symbol CRL, and the pink symbol CDTAF. For more details on Carl Data, please visit carlsolutions.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is award-winning investigative reporter Bob Mackin. He's also the publisher of thebreaker.news. Welcome back to the show, Bob.
Thank you.
The political scenery here on the Lower Mainland, quite a few changes after the civic election. First of all, take a look at Vancouver, where Kennedy Stewart. See, that's what happens when you have a last name first and a first name last. Kennedy Stewart wins the Vancouver race for mayor by less than 1,000 votes, but wasn't that expected when you had so many candidates running?
Oh, indeed. Kennedy Stewart, who ran as Vote for Kennedy, didn't really use his last name for a number of reasons. I guess they didn't want to get confused with Shauna Sylvester. You don't want to have too many S's around there to confuse people. And, of course, Kennedy, the name Kennedy evokes strong emotions for people who are in the later years of their voting ages because of the Kennedys from the United States. So he won by a very slim margin. Ken Sim from the NPA did not immediately concede. There was less than 1,000 votes, and he waited until Monday afternoon to finally throw in the towel. And after talking to his advisors, that 1,000 votes would have been too much to make up within a judicial recount. It was more than enough that was needed, or not enough votes. Sorry. The vote margin was too high for an official automatic recount at City Hall, and it was probably too much that the NPA thought could be overcome through a judicial recount, through an application to a judge. So they threw in the towel on Monday afternoon. However, the NPA can be happy because it's got the biggest voting bloc on City Council, 5 members, all women. It has a couple extra seats on City Council. It had officially 4 as of October of last year after the by-election, but of course Hector Bremner found himself on the outside looking in, so the caucus that the NPA had really was 3 going into this election. And that was the other story. Hector Bremner with Yes Vancouver, Y Young with Coalition Vancouver, and Fred Harding with Vancouver First. You take all of their votes, or even take some of their votes, and shift them over to Ken Sim, and that would have been enough for Ken Sim to get over the hump and become the mayor of Vancouver. But for that right-wing split, that's going to be a story for quite a while, that for whatever reason the NPA couldn't be the biggest tent party that it had always wanted to be, the grand old party of Vancouver. It couldn't unite the right like the left was mostly united under Kennedy Stewart and various allied candidates on the ticket as well. That the left did a better job through the labor movement of bringing together allied candidates from various parties underneath Kennedy Stewart, but the NPA thought it could do it on its own, because popular wisdom is that when the government in Victoria turns left, the government at 12th and Campbell turns right. That didn't quite happen according to plan this year, and there's already finger pointing behind the scenes. NPA folks pointing the finger at Wei Young, Hector Bremner, and Fred Harding for bleeding the vote away from them. But the question will be, can Kennedy Stewart, who flew under an independent flag, yet was not fully independent because he relied on the support of the labor movement and financial support and campaign support, can he be the consensus builder similar to what Mike Harcourt was way back when? Can he bring together the NPA members, some of whom are middle-of-the-road moderates, not conservatives, but more in the liberal sphere of things, along with some of the Greens, who are not very left-wing themselves, who are more in the middle of the road of the spectrum, along with Gene Swanson from COPE and Christine Boyle from One City, who are unabashedly on the left wing. Can he bring them together and reach consensus? I'm sure they're going to be butting heads, and it'll be entertaining along the way over the next 4 years, but this council does have the potential to work a little bit closer together, definitely than the previous one, the Vision Vancouver Council, which was a majority from a singular party, which exercised party discipline, which also met in secret and potentially illegally in secret.
Yes, about those secret meetings, have you had any chance to crack what happened behind those closed doors?
Unfortunately not, because they didn't keep records, or that's the story, and they're sticking to it, which is what they told me and also told the Information Privacy Commissioner, that they had these meetings, what they called caucus meetings, whereby they would sit together and were told that they would discuss calendars and small things, just what's coming up on the agenda. Nothing big, we were told, but I found out when I found the mayor's secret Gmail account and got information through FOI on Gregor's Gmail account that they were actually discussing crafting of policy at these meetings, that where they supposedly never kept records, never kept an agenda, never kept minutes, never kept handwritten random notes, not at all. And this is problematic because Raymond Young, who is one of the foremost municipal affairs lawyers in British Columbia, he appeared at the 2015 edition of the Union of BC Municipalities Convention, where he gave a presentation. And in that presentation, he said that if enough members of a city council are meeting to fulfill a quorum, and in Vancouver City Council, a quorum is just one more than half, basically a majority, 6. If the 6 members of Vancouver City Council are meeting together, well, then that's actually a city council meeting, and that should be open to the public. And if it's not open to the public, they should be explaining their reasons why under the in-camera provisions of the Vancouver Charter. But they weren't, and they didn't. They decided, the Vision Vancouver caucus, to meet as a caucus, and never kept records, and didn't tell us when they were meeting, except unless you're someone that looked through the calendars and agendas of the members of City Council and the mayor or his chief of staff that you had to get through FOI because they didn't proactively release those. That's where you discover that they were meeting as a caucus. And so over 10 years, we don't know how many times they actually met as caucus. We don't know what the decisions were. They were essentially acting like the cabinet does in Victoria, except for the difference that cabinet does keep minutes and agendas, and that after 15 years, after each cabinet meeting, we are able to make an FOI request to get those documents. But Vision Vancouver, nothing exists, we're told. We will never know what important decisions that the Vision Vancouver majority made in secret, behind closed doors, away from the public eye. This is not the way government is supposed to be. This is not the way Vision Vancouver was supposed to be, if you're to take the mayor's words for the way they were spoken back in December 8, 2008 at swearing in, where he said he was going to bring transparency and accountability back to City Hall. And the words he used to underline that were, "I will not let you down." Well, I think the result of the October 20th civic election is validation that he let a lot of people down, because Vision Vancouver did not get a single person on City Council or Park Board. They did get one measly school board seat, Alan Wong, but that's it. This party is basically a spent force, and the brand is tarnished. There's some question of whether it'll ever be resurrected again, or if the rebirth of COPE and the early development of One City, if those two parties will be the standard bearers for the left wing going forward. And of course, we'll wonder what next career move is for Gregor Robertson after after being essentially forced out of office, forced to make the tough decision himself earlier this year and leave a party in absolute disarray, a party that was thinking of running a mayor, then decided not to run a mayor, then decided to find a couple of candidates for a mayor, and chose Ian Campbell, who pulled the plug on his mayoralty before registration could happen because of a stayed domestic violence charge from 2010 that wasn't disclosed to the party. And then the eve of the election, one of their city council candidates, Wai Chao Zhang, he had his party endorsement revoked. The reasons were not official, were not publicly made, although there was some sort of a misconduct that happened that he did not report to the party. He has not commented, at least to me. I've tried to get in touch with him and tried to get in touch with party brass as well. But so Vision Vancouver had its own scandals this year among its candidates, and there it is, with no one reelected to any of the positions. Very few members of city council decided to run again. So the NPA at least can say that well, they got 5 more people on city council than Vision does, and we'll see how the madcap future of Vancouver politics changes over the next 4 years.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the Pink's CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Bob Mackin. Bob McCallum back there in Surrey as mayor, former mayor, and he wants to bring in his own police force and fire the RCMP, which, by the way, is the largest RCMP detachment in Canada. He also wants SkyTrain instead of LRT, where they've already done $50 million worth of work. Do you think he has any chances of success on either one of those counts?
Well, I'm sure there's got to be some members of the RCMP that wouldn't mind being in a municipal force, where tends to be that pay rates are a little bit higher, and of course local control and not being under the auspices of Ottawa would probably please some of those members too, because the RCMP isn't what it used to be. There's been a lot of controversy over the last several years of this police force and its poor management, the bullying and the harassment on the inside. I'm sure there's a lot of people in Surrey who would appreciate having local control because of the ability to have a more nimble police force that can perhaps respond quicker to the crime problems, the organized crime problems in Surrey. I don't expect the RCMP to go quietly. I think they're going to make a case why they should stay. You'll have it's a line of revenue that goes to the RCMP headquarters in Ottawa to have British Columbia hosting so many detachments that are on contracts with the RCMP. Surrey is a unique case because it's a municipality that is a border municipality with some of the busiest border crossings in the entire country. And, of course, our border with the United States is, as we like it to be, undefended, but there is the other side of that coin is that there are problems with organized crime, people trying to smuggle. There are people that are trying to get across the border to claim asylum. There's good reason why there should be a national police force policing that border, and the RCMP is going to state that case. I think we might see in the months to come more RCMP action along the border, perhaps even more RCMP news releases telling us what goes on the border, because they will want to to make the case that they should stay in Surrey. Again, it's a 2-year opt-out clause. It's something that the Surrey City Hall staff will have to first do full accounting to find out all the costs of getting out of the RCMP and setting up their own police force. Doug McCallum will have to look, of course, at the city's books to see if they can afford it all. And then there's the problem of rapid transit, that the Surrey First City Councils under Diane Watts and then Linda Hepner were all in on LRT, light rapid transit, like rail transit, and Tom Gill was going to carry that torch if he had won the mayoralty, but instead Doug McCallum faces a fresh mandate with a city council that has all Safe Surrey Coalition members, his own party except for one. So he has a stronger mandate to make change in Surrey than in Vancouver, where it is a bit of a fractured city council that will need some consensus building. Well, Doug McCallum has the mandate, has the votes on council to do whatever he wants, basically, but he's going to be butting heads with Ottawa on the RCMP issue, a little bit with Victoria, too, because it's Victoria that is key to the whole contract with municipalities. There's going to be some interesting meetings between Doug McCallum and Mike Farnworth, the Solicitor General from the NDP BC government, and then federally and provincially on the situation with the LRT, that he wants to build a SkyTrain instead, which will cost at least $1 billion more. And who knows what the total bill would be if it does get built, but they already have the commitment for an X amount of dollars from the federal and provincial governments. And the federal and provincial governments don't sound terribly keen on increasing that amount, because Surrey will need more to build the SkyTrain versus the LRT. McCallum thinks that he can do it for the same magnitude as the Evergreen line, which was supposed to be $1.4 billion or so. We don't know the full cost. The Auditor General hasn't done the fine-tooth comb accounting there. But McCallum thinks he can do it for the same as the Evergreen line, which would be as cheap as the existing LRT plan, which, well, we'll see if that can be done, because he doesn't exactly have all the engineering and architecture and design plans for the alternative. There would need to be millions of dollars spent on experts to do the full plan, to get it shovel ready, to get it ready for procurement on the SkyTrain platform. Now, the one thing that the federal government has said, that Justin Trudeau has said all along since 2015 when he was running for office, was that it's up to the communities, the local jurisdictions who want the federal funds. It's up to them to choose the technology that serves their jurisdiction, that is best for their jurisdiction. So Ken Hardy, who's one of the Liberal MPs in Surrey, reiterated that this week to CKNW, and said that that's the case, that if McCallum wants to use the federal money for SkyTrain and can still make it work, so be it. So you have other mayors around the Lower Mainland who are not exactly enthusiastic about this. Other mayors who have benefited from transit investments, other mayors who want some transit investments. You do have Kennedy Stewart in Vancouver, who seems amenable to McCallum's plan, and is hoping to get McCallum to agree to Kennedy Stewart's plan, which is to take SkyTrain from Arbutus to UBC. And we don't even have the shovels in the ground yet for the SkyTrain tunnel underneath Broadway to get it to Arbutus, when we have politicians already talking about getting it all the way from Arbutus to UBC, which would cost another $3 billion. This could become the most expensive project in Canadian history by the time it's over, except for Site C. This is, again, going to be another soap opera for British Columbians, for Vancouverites who watch the TransLink to and fro. I think what's happening here, we're seeing in the early days before they're even sworn in, is that Kennedy Stewart and Doug McCallum are jockeying to be the chair and vice chair of the TransLink Mayors Council. That would give them a lot of clout politically in the Lower Mainland. That might be the only way that the Surrey and the Vancouver projects can get the precedence that they need. I think we're going to see a lot of headbutting there on the TransLink Mayors Council, which meets at Sapperton at the TransLink headquarters every once in a while. because there are the three new mayors on the North Shore, for instance, are shouting for help because of the transit and traffic problems in North and West Vancouver on Lions Gate and on the Second Narrows. Certainly there is more C-Bus coming, but those are two car-spangled spanners that it's harder to get off the North Shore in the afternoon rush hour than it is to get off the North Shore in the morning rush hour because of the transportation gridlock. And you'll have other municipalities that are screaming for some transit money that won't be terribly enthused about paying more to help Surrey or more to help Vancouver. So that's going to be the one to watch in the months to come, is how these new mayors get together at the TransLink Mayors Council and how they interact and what alliances are formed and and who the adversaries are.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
MGX Minerals is revolutionizing the new energy economy with patented lithium extraction technology, replacing traditional solar evaporation using low-cost, low-energy nanofiltration. The first system of this paradigm shift technology is currently being commissioned. MGX Minerals trades on the CSE, symbol XMG, the OTCQB, symbol MGXMF, and Frankfurt, symbol 1MG. For more information, visit our website, mgxminerals.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin. Longtime Burnaby Mayor Derek Corrigan went crashing down in flames. Was that unexpected?
Not entirely a surprise. The turning point seemed to have been earlier this year when Mike Hurley, the former fire chief, who threw his hat in the ring, when Mike Hurley got the endorsement from the New Westminster District Labour Council. That was important because that's something that Derek Corrigan had in previous elections. You know, Corrigan and NDP mayor getting the endorsement of the labor movement. Well, Mike Hurley got it this time. And that was the beginning of the end for Derek Corrigan. I think he probably knew it, that he was in tough once that happened, because the District Labour Council, through its work, its volunteer work behind Hurley, in order to get him elected, in order to get beyond what has been a controversy festering for the last several years, the whole issue of dem-evictions in Metrotown, which attracted media attention from the Vancouver media outlets. TV cameras going out to see protests at the 3 or 4 story walk-ups in the Metrotown area, places where new immigrants lived, places where the working class lived. These buildings were being replaced by renovated buildings, also by luxury skyscrapers that were being marketed overseas. This caused people who were longtime Burnaby residents to have to look for other places in the Lower Mainland, places further east, for affordable places, and they may have even caused homelessness, caused people to start living on the streets, either on concrete or in caravans and campers. A really bad situation, and Mike Hurley made that his major issue. He even told me that members of the business community in Burnaby are concerned because with fewer working class people living in an important area of Burnaby like Metrotown meant that it was harder for various service industries to get workers, and also harder for construction companies to get workers. It just made the cost of living in Burnaby more expensive. Burnaby, of course, was a municipality with nice accounts. They're definitely not in deficit. They've got reserves from decades past. A municipality that could have afforded to also spend some money to help out the homelessness problem, but Derek Corrigan's idea was, well, let them go to Vancouver. Let them go west of Boundary Road. He didn't really show much compassion there either, and that's what eventually caught up to him, that he was seen as being out of touch with the public. Joe Keithley was the original challenger for Derek Corrigan earlier this year, but he decided to step back and let Mike Hurley become the challenger. And Joe Keithley instead ran for city council in Burnaby and got the last spot. So, Joe Keithley had a victory there in city council, stopping the Burnaby Citizens Association stranglehold on city council. He'll bring a new voice, a bit of a disruptive voice there, but at least he will be an ally to Mike Hurley. Of course, that's only 2 votes. There's 7 there other votes still, but we'll see if the remaining Burnaby Citizens Association members on Burnaby City Council can work with the new mayor, who's not exactly from a different area of the political spectrum. I mean, they might have a little bit of animosity towards the person who beat their leader, but then again, this might also give some of the members of Burnaby City Council who were loyal to Corrigan a chance to spread their wings a little bit and maybe even think 4 years down that they could perhaps challenge Hurley for the mayoralty. It's going to be a different Burnaby City Council because you won't have that strong leader anymore in Derek Corrigan, and you'll have some new ideas and a couple of new faces.
The battle in Richmond seemed to be taking place along racial grounds. What happened there and why?
Well, Malcolm Brody will be the new longest-serving mayor in Richmond history after winning very comfortably in Richmond, more than 30,000 votes to become the mayor again. He's been mayor since 2001. He'll be mayor if he wants to be until the year 2022. That's a long time to have a singular mayor. It was supposed to be a closer race because he was getting a serious challenge from Hong Guo, the real estate and immigration lawyer, who was running on a change platform and running 2 campaigns, basically. One, of course, to the Chinese community, the very sizable Chinese community in Richmond, but also to the English-speaking community in Richmond. She was trying to be the candidate who was going to solve, or at least lobby the provincial government, and maybe work with Delta to lobby the provincial government to get going on a replacement to the Massey Tunnel, to build a bridge. She was concerned about affordable housing, about City Hall being unresponsive to the voice of the public, about the RCMP contract in Richmond as well. She was offering some messages that would have been palatable for Richmond, which is a community which is known for being very much a free enterprise, BC liberal, and going way back a social credit community. But instead, her problems caught up to her. She is someone who is cited by the Law Society of BC for professional misconduct. That will eventually be heard sometime in 2019. She is also someone who made some controversial comments to me when I did an interview with her on October 2nd after the all candidates meeting. I asked her about her wish to bring Richmond closer to China, especially from a business standpoint. And I asked her about the reluctance of some people in the Chinese community, especially those who have a Hong Kong background or a Taiwanese background, people that are concerned about Taiwan and Hong Kong, as well as human rights on mainland China. And she told me, in certain terms, that according to her, there's no human rights problem in China, and that journalists have freedom of speech. Everything's tickety-boo. Messages that are completely contrary to the reporting of international media outlets, international non-governmental organizations, and even the United Nations. That would have cost her some votes. And then there was the WeChat vote-buying scandal that she claims she's innocent as well. But that was put into the RCMP's lap. The RCMP has not found evidence yet to recommend charges, but are still investigating. That didn't look good on any of the Chinese candidates who were named in that WeChat message from the Canada-Guangzhou Friendship Society, which also offered a $20 quote-unquote transportation subsidy to go out and vote. There was one party, the Richmond Community Coalition, that held a news conference and called upon other parties and called upon those in the Chinese community not to tell people in the Chinese community just to vote along racial lines, along cultural or ethnic lines. Look at the best candidates and vote for the best candidates. And that was from a party whose lone candidate to get reelected, Chak Ao, is a Hong Kong immigrant himself. So Richmond right now is a very divided community, even though it's got a council which now has two less incumbents after Michael Wolfe and Kelly Green got elected to replace Derek Dang and Ken Johnston, who had a bit of baggage themselves for doing some side work as developers of a townhouse development. That rubbed a lot of people in Richmond the wrong way. But Richmond right now is a community that's trying to find itself, trying to remain as a multicultural community, yet a community that many people at the all candidates meeting I went to, regardless of what culture they were, there was a lot of talk there about needing to bring the community together and have some sort of other language law to mandate English on signs, or at least to have better education to encourage newcomers, especially from mainland China, to be speaking English. There's a cultural divide there that really could be solved by having a common language, much like they have in the European Union. Richmond needs to get a common language some way, shape, or form, and that may have been also a bit of a deterrent to people to vote, that you've got newcomers who may not have been able to understand all the messages because they don't understand the language yet. And we live in a country where we've got two official languages, and one of them is English, and that's the language of business, except for in many places in Richmond where Chinese has taken over as the dominant language. That culture clash, which really festered under Malcolm Brody, it does have a better chance of being solved now that you've got some new faces and new ideas on city council. It's got to be solved more than ever because it's holding the community back. And you don't want a community with such tension and potential strife. You want a community that can progress. And Richmond right now is a community that needs some moderating forces, and we'll see if the addition of Kelly Green and Michael Wolfe onto City Council can push Malcolm Brody, who probably is in his last term, to leave a legacy of inclusion and accommodation where people in Richmond can kind of meet in the middle and speak a common language.
Bob, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you.
My guest has been award-winning investigative reporter Bob Mackin, the publisher of TheBreaker.news, his website, TheBreaker.ca. If you have any questions for Bob or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.